Namaskar and welcome to our program. Our guest today has been working tirelessly in the field of neurosurgery and has brought relief to millions suffering from epilepsy. But before we meet our guest, here's a thought for the day. A great man is different from an eminent one in that he is ready to be servant to the society. एक महान आदमी एक प्रतिष्ठित आदमी से इस तरह से अलग होता है कि वो समाज का सेवक बनने को तैयार रहता है. And here's a look at the history of the day. Baba Saheb Ambedkar's quote is so apt today because our guest has dedicated himself to the service of the nation. We are delighted to have on our program today the renowned neurosurgeon, Dr. P. Sarat Chandra. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Well, we are glad that you're here and to share your knowledge and what you're doing in your field with the rest of the country so that more and more people know about it and get relief from their disease, especially epilepsy. But the first question really is, Doctor, what exactly is epilepsy?
We have around 7 billion neurons in our head, and these neurons are basically brain cells, and it's approximately 7 times the population of this country. And the way we think or we do everything in our life, we move, we do whatever actions we do, is because of function of these neurons, and there is some amount of electricity which is passing through them, just like any computer chip, except that it's million times more sophisticated or more complex, and that is what creates a personality or what we are, who we are. Now in epilepsy, what happens is a cluster of neurons instead of being connected this way are connected this way. So there is some amount of short circuiting which is taking place within the brain or sparking, and this leads to spread of abnormal impulse or electricity to rest of the brain, and it manifests in different types. The commonest type of manifestation, as any common man would know, is when a person has a seizure, he gives a shout, he falls down, he starts moving his hands and legs, and this is because of an intense amount of electrical activity which is surging through his brain at that moment of time.
And that in common parlance is called
Mirgi ki bimari. But you have to understand that this is only one type of seizure which we see.
Right.
Basically, any abnormal electrical activity occurring in any area of the brain can manifest in different ways depending on what is the function of that particular area of the brain.
तो इस तरह से जब ये इलेक्ट्रॉन्स अपनी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी जो जनरेट करते हैं and it is not exactly correct, तो is it always manifested कि कई बार it is undetected also?
Yes, see, there are many types of seizures. For instance, in children between 5 to 6 years, we have something called as an absence seizures. Okay. So over here, all that child will have is a few seconds of unresponsiveness. He may look blankly or he may just blink his eyes, and many times the teachers think that the child is not paying attention, but all the while he may be just having seizures. So it is from that part of the brain where there is absolutely no function, and that person has a brief staring spell without any activity, and he loses touch with the surroundings. Similarly, a very interesting, even though very uncommon type of epilepsy is called as Jelastic Eclipse or laughing epilepsy. So over here there is an abnormal tumorous malformation. It's not a malignant tumor, it's a very slow growing benign tumor called as hamartoma, which occurs in an organ which is exactly in the base of the brain. It's called as hypothalamus, which is responsible to generate all our emotions. So in this area, the kind of seizures that the child will manifest is with laughter. So he will sit and suddenly he will start laughing, he or she will start laughing. And we have had patients who have been brought because they think that this patient has been possessed by evil spirits, and we have done surgery and the patients are completely all right. The idea of telling this example is that seizures is not just what is seen commonly where the person has this jerking movement. It could manifest in hundreds of different ways depending on which area of the brain is affected and what is function of that particular area.
So I want to ask you, why is it that you chose epilepsy as your field?
You know, it's a common interest. It's a common interest between me and my wife. So we thought we can pick up some kind of a professional front where we can interact, and that would of course enhance our own relationship, both in professional and personal lives. That's the main reason why I took
And
up
neurosurgery?
epilepsy. And neurosurgery, it's a very interesting story, because I took up neurosurgery more as a fascination, because I read stories of neurosurgeons doing fantastic things in Reader Digest and other books. So I thought it would be amazing if I took up neurosurgery. And when I took it up, suddenly I realized that I made it a big mistake, because it was so difficult, so tough. You have such long hours of working, and at one point of time I thought maybe I will not be able to do it, because you have to work the whole night and then come for the next day for surgery, and you are working yourself day in and day out. And that is where I met my Guruji, you know, at Oneness University, and I went through a full course. And I think that what brought the transformation, because that was a shift, paradigm shift from my concepts just out of MBBS into what makes me to become a neurosurgeon. And so that is where I realized that there is actually nothing more to achieve. You have come from a state of becoming to being, and you have reached to a state which is a state of stillness. I don't know how I have to put it, but that was what my transformation was. And at that point I realized that once my perceptions changed, my passion towards the subject surprisingly also changed. I started liking the subject more and more, because I realized that I am able to contribute to patients more and more, rather than trying to help myself or trying to achieve a personal glory. And that way I had a greater sense of fulfillment. So I think this kind of transformation comes in everybody's life, in the life of every achiever, and this is a paradigm shift which everybody must accept.
And you yourself have been a high achiever, topping?
Yes, I have been. I was the topper of my medical school, and I have got number of awards, number of gold medals. But to achieve something is very different in an MBBS, and then to achieve something in a later life is also a different ball game.
Right.
And there has to be a paradigm shift. That's why you find that many of successful doctors, when they are doing very well in medical school, but when they graduate they don't do so well in their life, because both of them are two different sets of games.
So somewhere it's important to bring science and spirituality together.
Absolutely, totally, I agree with this, because when you start treating patients, you understand that you're not just treating a disease, but you're trying to treat a whole person and a whole family, and there are so many emotions attached to it. And the deeper you realize about it, the better it is. And many times it could be overwhelming, because you're seeing so many patients and they keep on coming to you and you have such a lack of time. But if you have fundamentally this kind of shift in your consciousness from me to others, I think that is where you will be able to contribute more meaningfully.
Is there any kind of music that you listen to?
I like listening to Vedic chants in the morning. So when I do my meditation and when I'm getting ready, I put on my own set of music. It really helps me to quieten my mind.
Well, let's try to quieten our minds with this rag. when you have these kind of seizures, do emotions have an effect on these seizures? Because we talk about the nervous tick, for example, when
yes.
Somebody is getting nervous, though.
Yeah, that is totally different. That
right.
is not an epileptic activity or not. That is not a seizure.
Right.
Those are habitual tics or nervous. Person becomes a bit nervous and then he could have some kind of a habit forming tics. So that is not epilepsy.
Right.
Epilepsy is when he can have this kind of tics where he will lose his consciousness, and it occurs because of increased electrical activity within the brain. Now, before the onset of epilepsy, the people could have various types of emotions. For instance, some people can have an aura of, this is called as an aura. So before having seizures, many of these patients will have some kind of aura, so that the patients themselves would come to know that they are going to have this kind of episode. So some people have an aura of fear, some people have an aura of something rising from the stomach. So some people just have an aura that something strange is going to, or some seizure is going to happen. So these are the emotions which may be associated with seizures, and they usually happen in form of aura before the onset of seizures.
How much before?
Couple of seconds before. That's it. But once the seizure starts, it is actually, it depends on which area of the brain is affected. For instance, if it's a motor area or the face area, it could be just in form of movements within the face itself,
right,
which we call as focal seizures, focal facial seizures. And if it becomes generalized, the person could lose the consciousness.
हम लोग इतनी बात सीजियर्स की कर रहे हैं और एपिलेप्टिक फिट्स की बात कर रहे हैं. Are these preventable in any which way?
So you have to understand that we have over 10 million people in this country who could be suffering from epilepsy.
When you say could be, meaning they've not been diagnosed yet?
Yes, they have not been diagnosed, and for two reasons. First of all, in most of the rural area, people think that epilepsy is very closely related to lunacy. In fact, epilepsy in the Lunacy Act was treated by psychiatrists some time back. Now people understand that it's a neurological disorder. And secondly, there is a lot of stigma associated with epilepsy. So anybody have an epilepsy in the house, they would not disclose it. A common example is, when young girls come to me for surgery, they would come just with their mother and father, none of the relatives would come. And once the surgery is over, that is when they would like to keep it a secret, which I am totally, I am not in favor of doing that. And then they would try get them married, or they would, they would be very much anxious to see that she settles down very well in the family. But at the time when she has to get operated or when she has to be treated, only the parents come. So there is a lot of stigma by which people would like to hide this disease, because there are a lot of misconceptions associated with this disease. So that is why it is very important for us to come out of this.
अगर किसी को ब्लड प्रेशर है या थायराइड की बीमारी है तो एक गोली रोज खानी पड़ती है.
Absolutely.
Is it similar?
Absolutely. उनको न्यूरोलॉजिस्ट को दिखाना पड़ेगा, उनको असेस करना पड़ेगा. 75% of epilepsies is a medical problem. उनको हर रोज गोली लेनी पड़ेगी, शायद एक बार लेने पड़े या 2 बार लेने पड़े. अगर लेते हैं तो इन 75% ऑफ द केसेस उनको कम्प्लीटली बंद हो जाती हैं.
अच्छा, आपने बात की कि यंगस्टर्स में ज़्यादा देखने को मिलती है. इज़ इट एज रिलेटेड, इज़ इट कॉन्जेनिटल?
सी वेरी फ्यू केसेस ऑफ एपिलेप्सिस आर जेनेटिक. इसका मतलब है कि वो फादर से डॉटर को गए या सन को गए. ये वी कुड से इट इज़ हार्डली 2 or 3% ऑफ द केसेस. Most of them are acquired, or there could be because of genetic malformations. But you have to understand that these are sporadic genetic malformations. They do not pass on from father to son to daughter. It doesn't occur in that kind of a lineage. For instance, there is a malformation called as cortical dysplasia, जिसको हम सर्जरी करते हैं, जिसके बाद बिल्कुल ठीक हो जाते हैं. So in this, there is one area of the brain where the neurons are not formed well, and they are immature neurons, and they are kind of intermingled with each other. So there is a constant sparking from that part of the area, and it spreads to rest of the brain. So this is one common example of how a genetic malformation can affect or cause seizures. One of the commonest acquired causes in our country is because of cysticercosis. जो हम बोलते हैं कि जो because of pork infestation आती है. तो ये commonly ये होता है कि जो pork की fishes होती है, ये हमारे वेजिटेबल्स के अंदर उसकी कंटामिनेशन हो जाती है. एंड इफ यू टेक वेजिटेबल्स विदाउट वॉशिंग देम वेल, लाइक सलाड्स, दैट इज व्हाई वी एडवाइज नॉट टू टेक सलाड्स फ्रॉम आउटसाइड. सो इफ द सलाड्स आर ईटन विदाउट वॉशिंग देम प्रॉपर्ली, these eggs may be consumed by human beings, and they can go and get deposited in the brain, and they can cause seizures, and that is the commonest cause of seizure in our country.
And that's very alarming, isn't it?
It is a health hazard, and it is an indicator of a low socioeconomic status.
Right.
And once the level of hygiene improves, this goes away. So we do not find at all such kind of diseases in developed societies in the West. सो एक बार ये हाइजीन सब कुछ इम्प्रूव हो जाएगा तो ऑटोमेटिकली ये बर्डन भी कम हो जाएगा. बट इवन दो पीपल हैव सीजर बिकॉज ऑफ सच इन्फेस्टेशन like cysticercosis, once again they can be very easily treated with medicines. Almost all of these conditions can be completely treated just by medicines.
So it is really a simple way to get
yes, absolutely. So
तो क्या ये suppress हो जाती है, manage हो जाती है कि बिल्कुल completely treat हो जाती है?
See, cysticercosis या जो भी cyst जो brain में form होता है जिसकी वजह से दौरा आते हैं, for that cyst it's a dead end disease. So उसके लिए there is no other way for it to manifest or progress. So over a period of time it kind of gets destroyed and eliminates. So we just have to give drugs till that self destruction process occurs. So medicines may have to be given for a period of 2 to 3 years, and after which automatically you can start reducing the medicines and stop it.
But there are enough people, I think about 20 or 25% of this 10 million who are resistant to drugs.
Yes. Now that's a very good question. Approximately 20 to 25% of patients do not respond to drugs, and this kind of resistance to drugs is not like antibiotic resistance. अब देखिए एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस में जब आती है, जब आप उनको एंटीबायोटिक देते रहेंगे तो उसके तरह एक एंटीबायोटिक रेजिस्टेंस आती है. ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट एपिलेप्सी इज नॉट द सेम थिंग. ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट एपिलेप्सी इज एन it's a de novo neurobiological phenomenon. इसका मतलब है कि उस आदमी का शरीर में इस तरह का न्यूरोनल नेटवर्क है कि वो पहले से ही ड्रग को रिस्पॉन्ड नहीं करेगा. So that is why we say that whenever a person does not respond to the first drug, it should raise a suspicion that he or she may be having drug resistant epilepsy. And when a person does not respond to 2 drugs, the chance of him responding to the third drug is less than 5%.
So मतलब महीनों तक ड्रग्स देने की ज़रूरत नहीं है.
ये बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है क्योंकि आज के दुनिया में, आज के तारीख में मार्केट में वी हैव अराउंड 20 to 25 ड्रग्स. So there is absolutely no indication for us to go on experimenting with each drug. We now very well know, scientific literature very clearly says that if a patient has failed 3 drugs given in their optimum combination and dosage, if they have failed 3 drugs, the chance of this patient being controlled with a 4th drug is close to 0%, and they should be considered as a drug resistant epilepsy. And it is very important to go ahead with a further line of treatment, because if the epilepsy or seizures do not stop, आपको पता है कि sparking होता रहेगा. So every time there is a sparking, there are a couple of thousand neurons being knocked off permanently. And if this keeps on happening over years, the person is going to develop epileptic encephalopathy, जिसमें उनकी इंटेलिजेंस कम हो जाती है, मेमोरी कम हो जाती है, एंड सालों भर पढ़ता रहेगा तो यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू रिलेट टू दैट पर्सन एज यू वुड नॉर्मली. ही वुड बिकम मेंटली रिटार्डेड.
और देखा जाए अगर इस स्टिग्मा को छोड़ दिया जाए और एक डॉक्टर से अगर सलाह ली जाए तो इसको बिल्कुल क्योर किया जा सकता है.
हाँ, नाउ अ ड्रग रेजिस्टेंट एपिलेप्सी रिक्वायर्स अ मोर कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्म ऑफ ट्रीटमेंट. राइट. ही हैज टू बी इवैल्यूएटेड इफ यू कैन डू सर्जरी फॉर हिम और हर. एंड सर्जरी इन आवर कंट्री इज नाउ पॉसिबल. In high-end tertiary centers, there are 4 or 5 centers across our country, and the All India Institute of Medical Sciences is also providing a state-of-art treatment for drug-resistant epilepsy. And if you can do surgery in cases where it is likely to be beneficial, the outcome from surgery is very good. It can provide relief from seizures in approximately 70 to 80% of the cases.
और क्योंकि हमने एम्स की बात की और you are associated with AIIMS, there are many methodologies that you have devised on your own and with your colleagues which are unique in themselves. उनके बारे में कुछ बात करते हैं.
जी देखिए, we have devised one of the largest programs for epilepsy surgery at the All India Institute in New Delhi, and we have operated over 2000 cases. And operating a patient with epilepsy is much more challenging than operating a person with a brain tumor or anybody else, because there are 2 aspects for this challenge. One is that you have to ensure that the person becomes seizure free, and the second challenge is the person should not result in any kind of a new neurological deficit. And the surgical techniques what we talk about is not as a result of a single investigations. बहुत सारे investigations करने पड़ती हैं, because ये जो seizure focus होता है, it's a functional focus. Many times MRI normal हो सकता है, लेकिन वहाँ पे abnormal electrical activity हो सकती है.
और अगर brain tumor है वो तो दिखता है,
सिर्फ MRI में दिख जाता है.
जी.
तो इसमें हमें EEG करनी पड़ती है, एक वीडियो EEG करनी पड़ती है, जहाँ पे हम वीडियो रिकॉर्डिंग करके मरीज को कम से कम 7-8 दिन तक रख के फिर हम उसके दौरे रिकॉर्ड करेंगे. उसके बाद बहुत सारे फंक्शनल इमेजिंग टेक्निक्स होते हैं, जैसे कि PET पॉजिट्रॉन एमिशन टोमोग्राफी या सिंगल फोटोन एमिशन टोमोग्राफी, वो भी करने की ज़रूरत है। अभी एम्स में वी हैव ए मच मोर सोफिस्टिकेटेड एंड एडवांस्ड मशीन कॉल्ड एज मैग्नेटोएन्सेफेलोग्राफी. So this machine is capable of detecting the magnetic signals which is generated from the electrical signals of the neurons. So जो भी कोशिकाएं होती हैं उसमें जब करंट जाती है उसमें से जो मैग्नेटिक सिग्नल बनता है उस चीज़ को डिटेक्ट करके दिखाती है कि किस एरिया में दौरे निकल सकते हैं. And this is a highly sophisticated equipment and it can detect the magnetic signals in the brain in the order of 100 million times less than the Earth's magnetic field.
अच्छा.
So you can understand.
So sensitive.
Yeah, you can understand how sensitive it is.
Yeah.
और ये हम जब करते हैं एक magnetically shielded room रहता है so that we cut off the Earth's magnetic field and inside that we do this imaging. So using all this sophisticated imaging we decide which area of the brain is to be operated. And the way we do surgery fundamentally is of two types. या तो उस एरिया को हम निकाल देते हैं जिसको हम रिसेक्टिव सर्जरी बोलते हैं. अब उस एरिया को निकालने से आपको पता है कि अगर ब्रेन को निकालेंगे तो मतलब आप सोचेंगे कि इसको क्या प्रॉब्लम हो सकती है, बिकॉज आफ्टर ऑल वी आर टॉकिंग ऑफ ब्रेन वेयर वी हैव मेमोरी, इंटेलिजेंस, पर्सनालिटी.
उसी चीज का लोगों को ज्यादातर डर भी रहता है.
लेकिन आपको समझना चाहिए ब्रेन में एक चीज होती है जिसको हम बोलते हैं प्लास्टिसिटी.
जी.
तो अगर एक एरिया में कॉन्स्टेंटली दौरा पड़ रहा है तो उसका जो नॉर्मल फंक्शन है वो सराउंडिंग एरियाज में चला जाता है.
अच्छा.
हाँ, अगर उस एरिया को हम निकालते भी हैं तो मरीज को और कोई न्यू प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती है, बल्कि जब दौरे रुक जाते हैं there will be further improvement of memory, there will be further improvement of all his higher mental functions.
लेकिन ये आप बात कर रहे हैं जो एक ओपन ब्रेन सर्जरी
जी 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 जी.
You have come up and devised methodologies जहाँ ये एंडोस्कोपी के जरिए किया जा सकता है. That is something very interesting, isn't it?
So there is a very major surgery which is performed in children.
अच्छा.
जहाँ पे हम एक पूरे हेमिस्फीयर को ही दूसरे ब्रेन से अलग कर देते हैं. अगर if you see we have two hemispheres in a brain, the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere, and they are joined by a bridge of tissue called as corpus callosum. So in some very severe forms of epilepsy, especially seen in children, there is the one whole hemisphere is generating seizures.
Achha.
So what we do is we have to cut off that entire hemisphere, whatever connections are arising from the hemisphere. And this traditionally is a very very major surgery because in order to disconnect one hemisphere you have to make a very big opening, you have to take out a big bone flap, and it's a very big challenge in children because you can't lose much blood and the children have a higher tendency to become hypothermic, मतलब उनका जो body temperature है वो बहुत जल्दी गिर सकता है. So for doing this hemispherectomy technique, we have devised a technique called as endoscopic hemispherectomy, where instead of doing such a big opening, we can do the entire surgery from just an opening of 3 into 4 centimeters.
Achha.
And now this is an accepted technique worldwide. It's a technique which we can proudly say has been made in India, and now it's getting accepted worldwide. So I think it's now a reverse kind of a learning or a reverse kind of a scientific era which is coming, where India is seeing an era of change where it is developing a lot of indigenous medical techniques which is now being propagated in rest of the world.
When you have such arduous hours, what do you do for your own fitness?
Yes, I like to keep very healthy habits.
Right.
I get up very early in the morning. I drink plenty of water. I do have my private hours, my private time both in the morning and evening. So I like to spend at least half an hour doing some yoga, some breathing exercises and some meditation both in the morning and evening. And I like to focus on what I can. I don't want to indulge myself in too many things. So I think keeping your areas focused is very very important. So that way you will be able to achieve some practical goals, some doable goals, rather than some esoteric goals which you may not be able to achieve.
That's a great fitness tip. But besides that, we have some more for you.
रोगों से बचने के लिए, रोग हो चुके हैं तो उनको कंट्रोल में लाने के लिए, उनको क्योर करने के लिए योग एक समाधान है. योग एक विज्ञान, ये मात्र कोई पूजा पाठ की पद्धति नहीं, यह कोई धार्मिक कर्मकांड नहीं. अनुलोम विलोम आप जब प्राणायाम करेंगे, ऐसे कंटिन्यूअस करना है. बाएं से लिया, दाएं से छोड़ दिया, दाएं से लिया, बाएं से छोड़ दिया, दाएं नाक अंगूठे से, बाएं नाक को बीच की 2 उंगलियों से बंद करते हैं. ऑल्टरनेटिवली ऐसे 5 मिनट कम से कम लगातार करते हैं, कंटिन्यूअस करते हैं. तो एक राउंड 5 मिनट का, फिर ऐसे आप इसको 15 मिनट से अधिकतम आधा घंटे तक करना और आप देखेंगे कि जब आप आधा घंटा अनुलोम विलोम करेंगे, मैंने देखा है इससे पार्किंसंस ठीक होने लगता है, धीरे धीरे कंट्रोल में आने लगता है और बाद में क्योर हो जाता है। अनुलोम विलोम के बाद भ्रामरी प्राणायाम भी पार्किंसंस के लिए बहुत जरूरी। पहले अंगुली माथे पर, शेष 3 अंगुली आंखों पर, हल्का सा प्रेशर मिडिल फिंगर से आंख और नाक के मूल में, कान अंगूठी से पूरी तरह से बंद होते हैं तो एक भीतर से ओंकार की ध्वनि गुंजायमान होती है, उससे सारा स्ट्रेस दूर हो जाता है। ब्रेन और नर्वस सिस्टम में जो भीतर असंतुलन था, भीतर अशक्ति थी, वो दूर हो जाती है, एक नई ऊर्जा का संचार हो जाता है। तो अनुलोम विलोम, भ्रामरी और ये उद्गीत प्राणायाम। तो भस्त्रिका 5 मिनट, कपालभाति 15 से 20 मिनट, अनुलोम विलोम 15 मिनट से आधा घंटा, भ्रामरी और उद्गीत, ये 5 प्राणायाम करना। प्राणायाम तो हमारे शरीर की एक एक कोशिका को सशक्त बना देता है, स्वस्थ बना देता है, उसको मजबूत बना देता है। तो प्राणायाम तो सभी पार्किंसंस के रोगी को अवश्य ही करना है। हम प्राणायाम करेंगे, साथ साथ थोड़ा एक्यूप्रेशर करेंगे। अश्वगंधा का चूर्ण 1-2 ग्राम दूध के साथ ले लेना। अश्वगंधा चूर्ण, अश्वगंधा के कैप्सूल भी हम बनाने का प्रयत्न करते हैं। अश्वगंधा का चूर्ण तो कोई भी व्यक्ति ले सकता है, पाउडर करके 2-2, 3-3 ग्राम दूध के साथ ले लेना। उससे जो हमारा नर्वस सिस्टम है वो स्ट्रांग हो जाता है, हमारे मसल्स उससे मजबूत हो जाते हैं। और थोड़ा थोड़ा सूक्ष्म व्यायाम, हाथों की अंगुलियों के लिए ऐसे 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 हल्के व्यायाम हैं। इन व्यायामों को करना, थोड़ा गर्दन को दाएं बाएं घुमाना, ऐसे गोल गोल घुमा लेना, ऐसे। तो सूक्ष्म व्यायाम, प्राणायाम, थोड़ा सा सुबह जल्दी उठना, तीखी तली हुई चीज़ों का सेवन नहीं करना, भारी चीज़ें मत लेना। दूध के साथ जैसे कि मन का अश्वगंधा और शिलाजीत भी यदि असली मिल जाए तो 1-1 बूंद दूध के साथ ले लेना, और आप देखेंगे और पाएंगे कि आपका पार्किंसंस मिट रहा है। और प्राणायाम करवा करके, आहार पर नियंत्रण करवा करके हमने बहुत से लोगों का पार्किंसंस मिटाया है। मुझे लगता है आप भी प्राणायाम करेंगे तो आपका भी पार्किंसन नियंत्रण में आएगा, और यदि आप प्राणायाम करेंगे तो आप पार्किंसन सहित तमाम रोगों से बचेंगे।
सरिता जी, इन दिनों आप अपने खान पान का ध्यान तो रखती हैं ना? अरे ये क्या, भोजन में साधारण नमक, आयोडीन युक्त नमक का इस्तेमाल करें। आपके शरीर में आयोडीन की कमी से आपका शिशु शारीरिक और मानसिक रूप से कमजोर हो सकता है। आयोडीन नमक इन सारी परेशानियों से आपको बचा सकता है। ये नमक बाजार में आसानी से उपलब्ध है। बच्चों को हंसता खेलता बचपन दें, अपनी संतान का भविष्य संवारें।
सवारी जिंदगी चुटकी भर नमक, आयोडीन नमक।
Welcome back. We are in conversation with the eminent neurosurgeon, Dr. P. Sarat Chandra. Dr. Saab, there are other fields besides epilepsy which are related to the neurons and the neurology of the body that you're working on, and one of them are the craniovertebral area.
Anomalies.
Yeah. What is that about?
It's basically a disease at the junction of the cranium and the spine. So you have the cranium, which is the skull, and it articulates with the C1 vertebra, which is called as atlas and axis.
Right.
And any disease affecting this junction is very, very complex to treat. And one of my other areas of specialization has been to treat diseases in this area. And one of the commonest diseases which takes place is called as atlantoaxial dislocation and basilar invagination. So terms apart, what it exactly means that there is an instability here. तो यहाँ पे जो हड्डियाँ हैं वो फिसल जाती है, जिसके वजह से वो स्पाइनल कॉर्ड के ऊपर कंप्रेशन आता है।
ये क्यों होता है? एक्सीडेंट या बैड पोस्चर?
75% of the cases what we see are congenital.
अच्छा.
So whatever ligaments, whatever ligamentous structures which are holding the bones there, either they are not well developed, or the bony elements themselves have not developed well. And for some reason we see this very, very commonly in our country. And this also affects children between 10 to 20 years of age.
मतलब ये उस एज में जाके मैनिफेस्ट होता है,
एज में मैनिफेस्ट होता है, while it is present right from birth, but by the time it manifests as a disease, it's usually 10 to 20 years of age. And if these group of patients are not treated, they would develop मतलब weakness of all the 4 limbs, and they will develop double incontinence of both urine as well as stools, and they would be bedridden, they would develop respiratory distress, and they would ultimately die. So it's a fatal disease which has to be treated within 6 months to 1 year, otherwise they are going to die.
What is a spine reducer? What does that mean?
It's a kind of a mechanical reducer. I'll come to that. So what this technique does is, just by approaching from the back, we are able to align the spine completely. So we do not have to do 2 surgeries.
Right.
So by this, the surgical time is cut down to more than 50%. So the entire surgery gets over in just 2 to 3 hours. And then he or she has just one opening from the back, not from both front and back. And the patient is ready for discharge just in a couple of days, depending on the severity of the disease.
And what are the cost factors for this?
The cost is also comes down to half of the cost.
Okay.
The instrumentation is also much more less. Now, based on this technique, we are in the process of developing a universal spine reducer, because one of the biggest challenges of doing surgery in this area is because the entire spine is broken. So even if somebody tries to fix screws, he has to first reduce it.
Right.
And this reduction is very, very difficult for any
By
kind of-
reducing you mean align it?
By align it.
Right.
So let us say you put a number of blocks on top of each other. So instead of the blocks being perfectly aligned, let us say you shift one block to one side.
Right.
So now the blocks are not completely well aligned. So what is, you have to bring the blocks so that now they are perfectly aligned.
Right.
So this aligning is very important before you put it and fix it with screws and rods or whatever you do internal fixation. So this spine reducer allows the surgeon. Now reducing is subjected, currently it's a matter of, it depends on the matter of expertise. So if the surgeon has very good expertise, he is able to reduce it completely. If the surgeon doesn't have so much of expertise, is not able to reduce it completely, which is a limiting factor. So this universal reducer will allow even the mediocre surgeons or surgeons now with not so much of expertise to reduce the spine completely. So it provides you double advantage. Firstly, it cuts down the learning curve which you have for learning about the surgery, and secondly, it allows the surgeries to be performed in much more smaller places, not only just tertiary referral hospitals, so that a larger number of these patients can be treated with a more number of surgeons with less duration of training or less duration of expertise. And that, I believe, is the fundamental basis of any kind of technology. So any aspect of technology should be such that it could be easily used by many people who are not such great experts in that particular technology.
So chances are that this can spread all over the country and indeed all over the world.
Already it's spreading. In fact, in my department, most of my colleagues, they have started doing only this technique, and there are a lot of centers across the country where now they have started doing only this technique, and it cuts down the surgical time, it reduces the morbidity, it reduces the complication rate, reduces the infection rate. So everything is cut down very, very significantly.
And also it reduces the suffering of the patient, which is the most important.
That is most important. It results in a direct benefit to the patient, because the patient could be discharged in a very short span of time.
And what is the success rate of? The
success rate is very, very good. I would say in the range of 94, 95, 96%. We are able to reduce in practically all the 100% of cases. But saying this, you have to understand there is also a learning curve to this. So simple cases can be practically done by everybody, but once again, like any other disease, there are two ends of a spectrum. You have very simple cases, you have very complex cases. So once again, extremely complex cases should be referred to a tertiary institute. But I believe that this technology can be applied to all spectrum pathologies, and that is what we are doing.
You talked about technology. Now, robotics is a big thing that has come into medicine, and AIIMS is probably one of the first to use robotics in brain surgery.
Absolutely. So yes, you are right. I mean, over a period of time, we will definitely see robots replacing every aspect of surgery, because if you see the advantages, a robot doesn't become tired and it is capable of performing precision and repetitive movements continuously without any element of fatigue. But what the robot basically lacks is two things. Firstly, obviously, it doesn't have the necessary intelligence. So that's the reason most of the robotic surgeries what we do in labs or any other area of the body is by a remote control. So the robot is not functioning by its own intelligence, but is being rather controlled by the surgeon. And the other major disadvantage for robotic surgery is that it does not have any kind of a proprioceptive feedback. Like when a surgeon does surgery, when he is using the instruments, he is able to get some kind of a tactile feedback.
Right.
So he or she knows how much he should push the instrument without damaging the surrounding tissue. And this kind of tactile feedback is not there in the robotic system. So currently in neurosurgery, we do have a robotic system which is the first installation in this country. And this robotic system, we use it primarily for epilepsy, for electrode placements. So by electrode placements means we have a subset of patients where the MRI is completely normal. So in these patients, we need to localize where the seizures are arising from. So what we do is we make multiple openings and then we put multiple electrodes into the brain, and then we record electrical activity from the brain. And depending upon which area has maximal electrical activity, that is the area where we go in, do surgery and remove that particular area of the brain which is diseased, so that the patient can become seizure free.
तो अब रोबोट्स जो होते हैं उनमें ब्रेन तो होती है, एक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक ब्रेन, पर अकल नहीं होती. तो जो ब्रेन सर्जरी के लिए रोबोट्स होते हैं वो डिफरेंट होते हैं, शायद उनके 3 आर्म्स नहीं होते.
There is a single arm. Currently the robotic system which is there for neurosurgery has a single arm, and it is used more for localizing that particular area of the brain.
So it works more like a guide rather.
Absolutely, it works like a guide, so that it can very accurately find out the area where you want to access. तो आपको ब्रेन में कोई एक एरिया में जाना है, आप MRI लेके MRI का जो डाटा है आप उसको रोबोट में फीड कर देंगे और रोबोट बिल्कुल आपको उसी एरिया में ले जाएगा. So it provides you a high degree of accuracy. But once you reach to that area, the rest of the surgery has to be done by the surgeon at this point of time.
Well, you always need the surgeon no matter how advanced technology gets.
Absolutely, that's what I feel.
The other thing that you've done recently, and which is also very interesting, is spine में absolute alcohol के साथ आपने एक technology develop की है, वो क्या है?
जी. Now there is a condition, it's a kind of a spine tumor called as vertebral hemangioma. It's a very vascular tumor. By vascular I mean that अगर आप इसको छुएंगे तो बहुत सारा ब्लड इससे निकलता है, बहुत ज़्यादा ब्लीडिंग होती है. तो इसका जो कन्वेंशनल ट्रीटमेंट है, ये यूजुअली इट अफेक्ट्स द स्पाइनल वर्टेब्रल कॉलम. एंड इसका जो करंट टेक्नोलॉजी है, इसमें बिफोर सर्जरी वी वुड डू एम्बोलाइजेशन. एम्बोलाइजेशन एंजियोग्राफी के ज़रिए होती है, जहाँ पे एक खून की नसों से एक तार डाल दी जाती है, एंड यू गो टू दैट एरिया ऑफ द spine where the tumor is there, and you inject some traditional glue like substances which will reduce the vascularity or the blood supply to the tumor. So once you do that, when you go ahead and do the surgery, you will not lose much of the blood. So that is the underlying concept for the current concept, and this is very, very expensive. I would say this would cost anywhere between 2 to 3 lakhs to 4 to 5 lakhs or 6 to 7 lakhs depending upon the level. So we have devised a very simple technique. So we went back to literature and we found that absolute alcohol was being used for renal cell carcinomas, which is a cancer arising from the kidneys, which is also very, very highly vascular, and it was being used in 1940s or 50s. And it is one of the most effective embolizing agents. But the reason it fell out of repute is because it is very, very thin, so it goes into the general circulation very fast. It has a very rapid systemic runoff.
Right.
जिसको बोलते हैं कि ordinary blood circulation बहुत जल्दी चला जाता है, जिसके वजह से toxicity हो सकती है. That is why it was given up and it was replaced by other safer embolizing substances, but which are much, much more expensive.
Right.
But if you see vertebral hemangioma, इसमें जो blood supply होती है, ये बहुत ही slow होती है. ये systemic circulation में जल्दी से नहीं जाता है. So using this analogy, we injected it directly into the vertebral hemangiomas, and it worked wonders. So after injecting it, when we opened up, the whole tumor had become bloodless, and we are able to remove the entire tumor and then fix it with rod and screws. And the beauty part of this treatment is it hardly costs, I would say, I mean, I don't know how to put it, it hardly costs 40 to 50 rupees.
Really?
For a vial of absolute alcohol, which can be procured from any chemist shop. as compared to lakhs of rupees what would be required for traditional embolization, and it is equally effective if not more effective. And we have seen wonders working on patients. We have seen bedridden patients who come back to us walking completely, and we have published this in very reputed surgeries, very reputed journals, and we have also presented it worldwide. So this, I would say, is a very, very important paradigm shift in treatment, because it's very important for us to bring down the cost of healthcare as much as possible, because majority of our patients have OOPS expenditure or out of pocket expenditure, they are not insured, and it is very important for us to devise inexpensive methods by which we can reduce the healthcare.
This in itself is a paradigm shift, क्योंकि ज़्यादातर कभी भी किसी सर्जरी की बात हो या किसी भी तरह की मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट की बात हो, तो the first thing is cost factors.
Absolutely.
To have you actually think of methodologies जहाँ cost कम हो, that is quite amazing.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it has a big impact, because a lot of patients who come to us are of low socioeconomic status,
Right.
and you give them a bill of 6 lakhs, it's impossible, they can
कहाँ
never
से दे
undergo the
सकते हैं?
surgery.
जी.
And you see these patients right in front of your eyes, you know, they have difficulty of walking, they become progressively bedridden, they will become doubly incontinent, and you don't do anything, they will be totally finished, and it is a completely curable condition.
That's amazing. In fact, आपका मैं पढ़ रही थी कि कहीं किसी की लोअर बैक पेन को भी आपने बिना सर्जरी के सिर्फ फिजियोथेरेपी से ठीक किया
Yes,
है.
we had conducted a study, and in fact this was also done in many places abroad,
जी.
where for disc prolapse, if you give supervised physiotherapy,
Right.
देखिए किसी को भी disc prolapse हो जाता है, many of them they are advised surgical treatment immediately. And at All India Institute we had a waiting list of 1 year. I mean, we can't help it, because that is how the system is. We try to help as much as possible, but you know how it is, you know, we have lot of patients coming in. So we did a study where we said that to one set of patients we will subject them to surgery immediately, and another set of patients we will operate them as per the routine waiting list. But during that time we will provide them supervised physiotherapy, because disc prolapse में क्या होता है, that when we advise exercise on a OPD basis, many times patients thinks that it's not exercises which is important, it's rather medicines. But if you see, in principle medicines will only reduce the pain, it is the isometric back strengthening exercises which actually cures the patient. So instead of rather advising it, we said that आपको इस department में हर रोज आना है, हम ये exercise करके दिखाएंगे, and we found that we were able to avoid surgery in almost 90% of the patients. So that is where we said that even the severe disc prolapse, if you give them supervised physiotherapy, the right kind of physiotherapy, you will be able to avoid surgery in majority of these cases.
ये तो रही बात पेशेंट्स की, उनकी फिजियोथेरेपी की, एंड यू जस्ट मेंशन कि साल भर लंबी क्यू हो जाती है, तो एज अ डॉक्टर आप इससे कोप कैसे करते हैं?
See, it's a very important question, because at the end of the day, you know, when people come with so much of grievances, they come with so much of suffering, they expect the best possible treatment from the doctor, they have a lot of expectations, but then you have to understand that even the health persons, they have to work under a lot of duress or stress, and I believe fundamentally that it's very important for everybody to have some kind of a spiritual crutch, because at some point of time you will understand that you can only do this much. There is a lot more things which happens automatically, and how it happens automatically is for you to think over or for you to decide. For instance, I do the surgery, but there is somebody else who cures the patient.
Right.
So I don't cure the patient, I just do the surgery. And the more experience you gain, the more amount of humility you will have in you, realizing that you are actually contributing only through this much, and by grace of somebody there is a lot of rest of contribution which is coming, which is helping the patient to become all right.
तो आप जब सर्जरी में जाते हैं या किसी तरह की ट्रीटमेंट करते हैं, आप किसको याद करके सर्जरी शुरू करते हैं?
I have been see, like I have told you, every person nowadays they require some kind of spiritual crutch, because we are being bombarded by all kinds of situations in our lives, and for some reason people don't like to discuss these things in professional life. In a professional life, you're always discussing about patients, you're always discussing how to do surgery, you're always discussing how to see patients, how to write papers, how to do research, but nobody tells you or guides you how exactly can you cope up
Right.
doing this. So through my mother, I also have a spiritual crutch, and it is I follow the teachings of Oneness University, and it is a ashram which is located just at the border of Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, and you can see the photograph of Guruji over here, and we call him Shri Bhagwan. And the basic philosophy of this organization is how they can impart enlightenment, how you can get enlightenment right in middle of marketplace. By enlightenment, it doesn't mean that you will have to go into some remote caves or remote mountains, but it means that how you can effectively deal with the existing situations, and how you can be happy inside dealing with whatever you have in your hand, and how you can attain a kind of balance between professional and personal life, and how it is very important to concentrate on your personal life if you need to have success in your professional life, and how it is very important to realize that your professional and personal lives are not separate, but they are part of the same continuum, and unless you achieve balance in both the fields, you would not be wholesome happy.
यानी कि जब तक पूजा उतनी ज़रूरी नहीं है जितनी अपने काम के तरफ अगर आपका एक डेडिकेशन है and you treat that as sacred, उसी में आपका निर्वाण हो सकता है.
Absolutely. So for me, I think that is a way I can get enlightenment or happiness, whatever you call it, through my profession, but it could be different from different ways, as has been taught by our Guruji. It could be for different people in different ways, but the whole idea is that it is possible for everybody to attain a shift of consciousness, or we can label it as enlightenment, but is basically a shift of consciousness by which you become a more productive member of the society, and how you can be internally happy, and by being internally happy, you are contributing very, very positively to the environment around you.
Does it help to have a wife who is in the same profession?
Absolutely. So I think I'm very fortunate in that way, because I have a very supporting wife who happens to be a professor of neurology at All India Institute, and her name is Dr. Manjari Tripathi. And yes, some occasions may be difficult because you are always there in the same profession, and you don't, but I think overall the positives are much more, because you get a lot of support in the professional. So if I come very late to house, I don't have to tell my wife why I am coming late, because she perfectly understands that I have had a long day. At the same time, when it is a weekend, she doesn't say that let's go for shopping, because she is also equally tired and we both of us rest together. And it's very nice to also interact in the workplace, and it gives a sense of fulfillment, and that's one of the reasons why I took up epilepsy as one of my key areas, because it gives an opportunity for me also to interact with my wife professionally, and I feel that by this way we will be able to contribute something more meaningful for the society.
You're doing that already, Doctor, and thank you so much for being on our program today and sharing your life and your philosophy and your profession with us. Thank you so much. इसके साथ ही विदा लेते हैं. हमें उम्मीद है कि आपको हमारा प्रोग्राम पसंद आया होगा. अपने विचार, अपने सुझाव हमें इस ईमेल एड्रेस पर आप भेज सकते हैं, aajsavere@ddkdelhi.org.in. इसके साथ ही विदा लेते हैं. गुड बाय.